What is going on, everybody? I'm Mike Cantalupo. There is no tournament in American sports quite like the NCAA Men's National Basketball Tournament. I guess that's why thousands of people on Twitter voted for this to be today's list. Today we're talking about the 10 best NCAA Tournament Cinderella stories. If you haven't already, follow us on Twitter here so that you never have to miss a list poll again. Also, follow us on Instagram here, if Instagram is more your liking. All right, here we go. Number 10 is Florida Gulf Coast University. They actually were one of the first teams ever to win a game as a 15 seed, beating the number 2 seeded Georgetown. They only made it to the Sweet 16, but in the 2 games they won, and even in that Sweet 16 game, wow, they electrified the audience and all of college basketball with their insane alley-oops and offensive style. Number 9 is Kent State. In 2002, they were a 10 seed that first of all beat number 7 Oklahoma, then they went on to beat number 2 Alabama, then they went on to beat number 3 Pitt. They lost in the Elite Eight to the eventual runner-up of the championship, Indiana, who they were pretty much unstoppable in that Elite Eight game. I don't think any team, let alone Kent State, would have beat them. They were 15 for 19 from long range. Funny thing about Kent State, a little guy named Antonio Gates was on the team. You may not remember him from the NBA because he didn't play in the NBA, but I'm sure you remember him one way or another. Number 8 is Davidson. It's easy to put them probably higher on the list of this because, well, Steph Curry. He led the Wildcats to an undefeated Southern Conference record and a 10 seed in the tournament. He put Davidson on the map and also electrified pretty much all of the basketball community. They beat the number 7 ranked Gonzaga in the first round, the number 2 ranked Georgetown in the next round, and then the number 3 ranked Wisconsin in the Sweet 16. They made it all the way to the Elite Eight, right? And were very, very close to making a Final Four appearance. They lost in the final seconds, 59-57, to the eventual champions in Kansas. Number 7 is VCU. Their 2011 team was given a 0.03% chance to make it to the Final Four. But that's exactly what they did. They were the first team in NCAA history to go from the first 4 play-in game to the Final Four of the entire tournament. They were an 11 seed out of the Colonial Athletic Association, and then they beat another 11th ranked team, USC, in the play-in game. They then got to face Georgetown, who's already been beaten 3 times in this list, and then they played the number 3 team in Purdue, beat them, number 10 team in Florida State, beat them, and then beat the number 1 ranked team in Kansas. They then went on to the Final Four to lose to number 8 ranked BUTLER in a very close game, and of course BUTLER is going to be mentioned a little bit further down this list. Number 6 is Wichita State. I was thinking about putting them earlier, but I ended up settling with them at number 6. It was their 2013 team that won the Missouri Valley Conference with a record of 12-6, so they weren't really that great, especially coming off of an undefeated season the season before. That led them to being ranked 9th in the West. They beat number 8 Pitt in the first round, then they beat down number 1 Gonzaga. Then they actually beat another team trying to complete a Cinderella story in number 13 LaSalle. It was only in the Final Four that they ended up losing to number 2 Louisville. The Shockers definitely did shock the world. Number 5 is Loyola Marymount. This 1990 team, in my mind, is the most emotionally driven Cinderella team of all time. They were an 11 seed in the NCAA tournament, but it's what happened before they got to the NCAA tournament that makes this story really special. The team was an incredible offensive powerhouse. They were averaging 122 points per game. Their leading scorer, who was also the leading scorer in the nation and the leading rebounder in the nation, his name was Hank Gathers. And he, one game during the 1990 season, collapsed and died of a heart attack mid-game. This left a huge emotional toll on Loyola, and they played for Hank the rest of the year. They went on an offensive fury in the NCAA tournament, unleashing 149 points in the second round against Michigan. That's about as emotional of a story and as heartbreaking of a story as it comes in sports, and sure, they only made it to the Elite Eight, but that's a Cinderella story if I've ever heard one. Number 4 is the Butler Bulldogs. The team that took down VCU in 2011 was also in the national championship game and one half-court shot away from beating Duke in the 2010 NCAA tournament. So it may sound like they shouldn't be a Cinderella story, but they weren't actually really that good in 2011. They ended up being an 8 seed from the Horizon League, and they made their way to a second championship appearance in a row. They beat number 9 Old Dominion, then number 1 Pitt, then number 4 Wisconsin, then number 2 Florida, and then number 11 VCU. They lost again, the first time to Duke, this time to the number 3 UConn team in the national championship game. But it was a chaotic way for them to get there. Number 3 is George Mason. They were an 11 seed in 2006, and they were good. They went on to beat the number 6 team in Michigan State, then the number 3 team in UNC, the number 7 team in Wichita State, and then the number 1 seed in UConn. George Mason made it to the Final Four and had the entire world watching them. And they didn't really have a star player to really showcase. It was a group of veteran players that played really, really good defense, which kept them in almost any game they played. And they were also extremely well balanced. They had 5 players with 11 points per game or more. Number 2 is Villanova. In 1985, Villanova was the 8th seed, and they became, and still are, the highest ever seed to win the national championship. Along the route, they beat Dayton, Michigan, Maryland, North Carolina, who were good, and that was the shock of a century. But then they went on to beat Memphis, and then in the title game, beat Georgetown, Patrick Ewing's Georgetown, in what many people consider one of the greatest sports upsets of all time. Number 1 is NC State. The 1983 team was something really, really special. 2 years before Villanova became the first 8 seed to win it, NC State basically created the term Cinderella story. They were on everybody's radar as a team they wanted to win, but probably didn't have much of a shot whatsoever. Jim Valvano was one of the most well-respected coaches and wanted to win his first ever NCAA championship. Lorenzo Charles jumping over Hakeem Olajuwon and dunking an air ball for a buzzer beater to beat Houston at the end of the NCAA championship is a moment that will live forever in college sports history. And then right after that, you have that iconic image of Jimmy V, just running onto the court trying to find anybody to hug. They're moments that are synonymous with March Madness and with the tournament as a whole. And for me, that makes them the number 1 Cinderella story in all of sports. What Cinderella story should I have put on there? I know there are plenty of them, but I only had 10 to put on this list. Join me in the comments below. Make sure to tweet me, to Instagram me, to follow me in general. If you're new to Total Pro Sports, hit the subscribe button because we put out videos every single day. Hitting the like button also helps us out a ton, so if you have a chance, please do that. Until next time, I'm Mike Cantalupo, and thanks so much for watching.